the verdict is in on nuclear power.
Is there any science which would convince Greenpeace that nuclear really should be part of the mix?
Well, I don't think the science is actually what you need to look at.
I will choose our backlash clear. I will choose free will.
Since the activation of the first nuclear power plant in 1954, the safety of nuclear fission power has dramatically increased, as has support for it as a possible green technology. Despite this, it remains a highly polemical subject, with concerns about radiation, waste, and ultimately its potential danger to human health. In order to carry out a meaningful analysis of nuclear power, we must do so on the basis of what it produces, namely energy. Inputs and outputs should be seen in relation to the energy produced. Let's start by looking at nuclear power in terms of its carbon emissions. Including all mining, construction, and decommissioning, nuclear power plants emit about 66 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Renewable energies do slightly better, with solar only emitting 32 grams and wind only 10. However, these differences are dwarfed when compared to the 443 grams of CO2 emitted by natural gas power plants and the whopping 960 grams from coal plants. Nuclear is not the frontrunner here, but it definitely beats fossil fuels. The disposal of nuclear waste remains a large problem, but the next generation of nuclear reactors may be able to use this waste as a form of fuel, eliminating the problem in the future. Chernobyl was the worst nuclear power disaster of all time, caused in large part by flawed reactor design. A lethal dose of radiation is about 4,000 MSV over a short time. If you were to spend 10 minutes outside the core at Chernobyl following meltdown, you would have received 50,000 MSV. Today, an hour on site will expose you to about 6 MSV, or the same amount of radiation received during a single chest CT scan. 400 MSV over a short time period will cause radiation poisoning, and 100 MSV is the lowest annual dosage which has been linked to increased cancer risk. In comparison, the high-end worker exposure at the Fukushima power plant, an older plant struck by natural disaster, was 180 MSV. The high-end recordings in the exclusion zone were only 40 MSV, and typically closer to 1 MSV over 2 weeks, less than that of a single head CT scan. A mammogram generates about 0.4 MSV, and the maximum external dose as a result of the partial 3 Mile Island meltdown was 1 MSV. This incident was caused by a violation of safety protocols by staff. The average amount of additional radiation from the incident was only 0.08 MSV for those living within 10 miles of the plant, which is comparable to the amount of exposure from living in a concrete or brick building for a year. The key way in determining the safety of any technology is of course not to examine single catastrophic events, but rather the average results of mass operation. You wouldn't judge the safety of driving on a single pileup. For every terawatt hour produced by coal, a staggering 161 die. Natural gas only kills 4 for the same amount of energy. The renewables are much better, with only 1 dying for every 2 terawatt hours produced by solar, or 6 terawatt hours for wind. Even including the occasional nuclear disaster, 25 terawatt hours are produced by nuclear power for every 1 death. Clean and safe, nuclear power seems to come in ahead of the pack.